Christopher Lamb is the Rome correspondent for The Tablet, the British Catholic publication. He joins us now via Zoom from Kinshasa in the DRC. Christopher, thanks very much indeed for joining us. How big is this trip in the DRC?
Oh, I think it's a very big trip, and I was I shouldn't have been surprised, but I was surprised to see such a big number of people turning out to see the Pope when he arrived. Crowds, several rows deep of people cheering and waiting to see the Pope. Must have been many tens of thousands there, and it's clearly a big visit because Francis has come with a strong message, and he delivered that message today at the presidential palace, saying that Africa must stop being exploited by what he called economic colonialism. And he said very strongly that Africa must stop being exploited. And when he said those words, there was applause, very warmly received. So I think there's two things about this trip. One, the message that the Pope has to try and bring peace and to highlight the suffering people in a country like Congo. But there's also, I think, a pointer that the future of the church is in places like the Democratic Republic of Congo. As your report said, half of the population are Catholics, and the Catholic Church plays a huge role. So I think these trips are very important. These trips are very important to show that the future of the church is in countries such as DRC.
In the report, we saw that the Catholic Church does quite a lot of work on the ground in the country already. What does a visit like this do for the country? Is it more spiritual enrichment? What outcomes can we get from a Pope visiting a country in this way?
Well, I think the first thing is encouragement of the work the church is doing to give people a spiritual and moral boost to continue to do that work. I also think that the political impact of a paper visit is very important. Like when he comes and meets the president and meets the country's leaders, he met the prime minister today, and he delivers a message to them. And he, through the work of the church on the ground, can utilise a certain soft power to try and influence things in a positive direction. Of course, it's very difficult. We know that the roots of the conflict in the DRC are very complex. But I think that what Francis will try and do is boost the community, the Catholic community, to be a kind of a force for reconciliation, a force for peace, a force for good. Okay, the church cannot control the political problems and the conflicts, but they can do their bit, and that's why Francis has come. To come to support them, to try and give them a shot in the arm to keep what they're doing.
Why the DRC and South Sudan at this time?
Well, this is a trip the Pope wanted to do for a number of years. He was scheduled to do it last July, and he had to do it back out because of problems with his knee and mobility issues. He's wanted to do the South Sudan trip since 2017. So this was the moment that they found to do the trip. And so they've gone ahead with it at this moment. Francis is 86 years old. As you can see, he's in a wheelchair. His mobility is not good. So I think for the Vatican, they felt that now was the moment. It's now or never. And first of all, I think the trip to South Sudan is going to be a historic one because it's going to be undertaken with the Archbishop of Canterbury and the moderation of the Church of Scotland, and they're going to try and push for peace in that country. And DRC, of course, as well. There is a great need for peace, and the Catholic Church has been involved in that. So I think the two countries together, the trip works very well. And I think as I say, Francis, who isn't getting any younger, needed to seize the opportunity.
Do you know his itinerary in the DRC? Where is he going to travel to? What is he going to see?
He's staying mainly in Kinshasa. He was going to, in an earlier itinerary for this trip, he was going to be going to Goma, but that has been called off due to security fears. So he's going to be mainly staying in Kinshasa. Tomorrow he is going to celebrate a mass in Dolo Airport. We're expecting 1.5 million people to be there. It's a public holiday, so we're going to have big crowds. He's going to meet displaced people from the eastern part of the country. He's going to meet with charity workers, but he's largely based in Kinshasa.
I don't know if you can give us a little bit of history why the DRC has such a huge Catholic population. How did that come about?
Well, I think it comes from its past as when it was under Belgian control, and missionaries from Catholic Belgium came to the country and brought the Catholic faith to the DRC. So I think that's the roots of the Catholicism of the country. Now, of course, it's grown on its own, and I think that the reason why the church is prominent in DRC is because the church is doing important work of education, healthcare, peace building, in a country that has had a lot of conflict. So obviously you have the history of the colonial past, but clearly the church has now a life of its own, and it's really a crucial part of civic society.
And then Friday, it's South Sudan. Tell us about that country and the faith there. All I could find out was it's about 60% Christian, but how much of that is Catholic?
I think a good portion of it is Catholic, but the thing about South Sudan, as you say, it's 60% Christians. The churches work very closely together. There isn't the kind of denominational divides that might be used to in other parts of the world. Churches are really very united, and yes, it's 60% Christian, and the church has been very involved trying to build peace in the country, which has been scarred by a on and off civil war since independence was declared in 2011 and the civil war started in 2013. There is, of course, a peace process in South Sudan, and Pope Francis and the Archbishop of Canterbury and the Church of Scotland leader are going to really try and encourage leaders, the political leaders of South Sudan, to pursue that peace agreement. In 2019, there was a retreat for the leaders, for President Kiir, Riek Machar, and others. And at the end of that retreat, where they were encouraged to work for peace, Pope Francis knelt down and kissed their feet in a dramatic appeal for peace. Now, some people feel that the President Kiir has not continued the role building peace, or has not followed up from what Pope Francis asked him to do. So by going to the country, the Pope was really going to lay down a challenge to them to bring what is a sorely needed peace to a country that is really suffering terribly.
Christopher, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us and giving us that update. Thanks for your time, my friend.
Thank you.
That's Christopher Lamb, who's Rome correspondent for The Tablet, the British Catholic publication. He's in Kinshasa in the DRC with the Pope, and this is the Pope's 5th visit to Africa and the 40th visit outside of the Vatican since he became, since 2013, I think. So the 5th trip in Africa, significant for the DRC, 50% Catholic. And then on Friday, he'll be going to South Sudan.